Hi, good evening. So I'm to demonstrate the Win Office Memo application. This Office Memo application enables business owners or organizations to customize their applications or business processes. So how do you do this application? First thing first, once you install this application, you'll be able to see the Office Memo. This Office Memo enables you to view all the requests that is being made by employees. So one good thing about this memo is that we link it to document management system, and also you can actually decide to have your employees register this application request from the website or the portal application. So for now, I'm going to demonstrate to you how the configuration works. Here, if you really want to customize the application, you can see a whole list of applications that I have on the system. So we've also configured the system to accommodate several types of requests. For instance, we have the payment process, the loan, employee update request, material request, procurement request, vehicle request, leave management, and a whole lot that you can configure. So you can actually configure your business processes. How do you do this? When you go to these approvals, for each department, you can assign departments for this. We notice that each and every department have different workflow and approvals. So what we did here was to create a department. This payment process for this department called logistics. We have full functionalities such as the project type, the prefix code, that's the code of each and every request that you've made. So depending on the department, you can actually assign a suffix. All right. So now you can also come in here to allow this for companies. So you don't really want most companies to use this application, maybe in case you're using multi-branching. Now, coming here, you can actually set up the stages. So the sequence of these stages, you can configure them here. So in this case, I can decide to add more level of stages to say, for instance, manager to approve. So feel free to add your own stages. So while configuring my stages, you can actually set up the sequence in which I want this thing to be. Then I can decide to publish it on the dashboard so that I will see that those on the workflow. So we also create a dashboard for this system. So now, for instance, if I require for the first stage that a PO, a purchase order is required for this particular stage, then I can check this. If I really want to freeze this budget based on the purchase order that was created, I can also check this. If there is an SO, for instance, for this stage, you want to generate a client invoice, you can check this. And then if there is need for a validation on each and every PO or SOs, that's the sales order, you can check that. So these are the stages which we have currently. So sometimes some stages have conditions. So you can actually set up the condition by checking this. All right. So each stage will have its first option or the second option. Now we have required invoice line. I want this stage to accommodate some invoice line, mandatory invoice lines. I will check this. Then in this case, I also want them to have a document to provide a document for this stage. I'll now say required document. Of course. So for and now I can also make it to be compulsory. So if want the documents to have code or unique code prefix, I'll also add this. So in this case, I want this system at this stage to have a required document. Then for some stages, you can have sub stages. So for instance, this manager tool to approve might have respective people that needs to submit some documents under this stage. You can actually customize sub stages. So two people can actually work in one particular stage simultaneously. So that is the configuration. Then this description. This description also, once you type anything here, the system is actually going to tell the person that is moving into this stage that this is what is responsible at that particular point in time. So you can provide description of what needs to be done at this stage. So once this is done, save it, and then based on the sequence, the system will update this manager tool to approve at the third layer. So now, what we configured here is that at the second to the last stage, you must make sure that you set up this is approved stage so that the system will know when the system needs to validate some transactions. Now, this is the configuration for this payment process. I'll go through the memo office memo type. I'll now click on memo request. and then create a new request. So you can see the dashboard that we have currently. So we also intended to add a kind of like a graphical representation for this particular point, so which is currently undergoing processes. So if I go to the details, I will now provide the option test for payment processes. All right, and then select the option. So if I select the option from what I configure right now, the payment processes, I'll provide informations of what I really need to do. Here I provide the description of what I am trying to offer, and then here we have the finance. So for payment processes, we intended to have that it's either you go through the invoices or you register a payment directly. All right. So if I'm going to invoice and payments request, I'm going to add a new payment. So this is the payment dialog. I'm going to add this and then select the destination if it's an internal transfer or another transfer. But right now I'm working on internal transfer. So in case you want to make this payment via an invoice, you can toggle on this finance and then open up an invoice line. All right. So the system keeps track and make sure that the validation is done based on the configuration that you set for the system. So once this is done, kindly move this to the next person. So based on what I configured, you can see that I'm moving this to the next person. I can provide information of what I really need at this point. All right. So a kind of a comment that the user, next person, will receive notification and then be able to approve this. So once this is done, I'll have to forward this to the next person. So you can see I will have them here. So you can see I've published these stages and then they are visible on the dashboard. So going here, going back, I'll have to forward it to the next person again. So at this case, you recall that when I was configuring the system, there was no person I added at this manager 2 level. So the system will not bring out anything. So if I go back to my configuration, I'll make sure that what I have under that particular department, I assign people. So I will come here to assign people that are responsible for approving this particular stage. So this application, you can actually configure any processes that you wanted and then give assignments to who and who needs to provide validations for this. So going back to that application, if I toggle on that forward or approve button, I will be able to see list of people that are meant to approve this, select one of them, and then forward. So when the system gets to the final point, I will have to click on approve option. So recall that there is an attachment in which I really need, I set up then at this stage. So what it means is before you move on to the next stage, you must provide the attachment that is required. So you can see the attachment is registered. So recall when I set up this attachment that it must be the required field. So you come here, save it, and then move to the next level. So moving to the next level, the validations I set up, the system also picks it to know that I must have to validate this my payment before I move to the next level. So I'll come in here to hit on this. So the reason why we allowed it to be manually registered is to avoid errors. Now, once everything is fine, I'll hit on this approve and then the system is validated. So you can actually use this to do anything that you want to do on the system.